I had a subscriber reach out to me today with a fantastic question that needs to be answered, so let's get to it. Question is, where would you say is a good point to stop telling the truth? Would you say expose it all? Like everything involving UAPs, aliens, or maybe other intelligent life exists? Or just craft our real? Him saying this, personally, I would say that we should expose absolutely everything, whether we can handle it or not, and then let that be our own personal decision. But I can understand why they wouldn't do that. So I think this is a great question and should be answered. Now, my personal opinion, I would love them to drop everything, but I know they won't because the technology that we're playing with here is probably out of this world, earth-shattering stuff that our minds can't wrap around. And then when we think that, that means it's extremely dangerous. And what do we know? That humans are greedy people. And if they have the opportunity to get wealth, get rich, or use something that's this powerful for themselves, hell yeah, they're gonna do it. So they needed to talk with all of the governments and make sure that everybody was on the same page with this technology so we could use it for good, whether that be transportation or what have you. That being said, I do believe that our government's probably like 5-10 years ahead of us right now, and they're teaching us with a curriculum, like a teacher would teach us, right? So these guys were in the skiff about a year and a half ago, and now we're seeing stuff like the stuff I believe personally that's rolling out, such as like the task force program by Luna and Congressman Tim Burchett that they just created, where they're doing the JFK Epstein files and the UFO file release, you know, that one. Well, I believe personally that these things were already spoken about earlier within a skiff, and it's getting ready to be released to us. Although it just popped up, making it feel like it was just a thing that happened. So that's my personal belief, but I would love to listen to what Hal Puthoff has to say, because I found a video of him talking about this at the Seoul conference. Now, just for clarity, Hal Puthoff is talking specifically about a conference that took place a few years prior to him at the Seoul conference, and he basically was told by some higher ups that he needed to come help because he was getting ready to go to a conference that was going to change the world. Listen up.
To start the conference off, he said, this conference is about disclosing something to the American public. As a startup position, let's assume that there have been crash retrievals by Russia, China, and the United States. And the question is, can we bring this out to the public? And so I think and most of the people I knew, when we talked to them later, said, oh, this is really cool. I mean, this can really go someplace. So he said, okay, the strategy we're going to use is we're going to make a list of all the areas that you think would be affected by this. And then on each one, you're going to have to grade them on a scale from +9 to -9 as to the level of impact and whether it's positive or negative. Okay. Well, make a long story short, it turned out that everybody going through these lists, it was a very sophisticated situation with complex computers and big screens and all that kind of stuff. It finally came down to the fact that the problem was there's so many areas to handle, and there was no way to handle them all at the same time. And so the final result was, therefore, the leader said, we're going to recommend that we don't go forward with this.
Hal Puthoff finds himself in a conference full of brainiacs that literally could change the face of the planet. All of them come down to saying the fact that it's probably not the best idea to release this information to the general public and release disclosure. That's interesting because this conference that he's speaking about took place before 2008. It is now currently 2025, and I guarantee you that there is some sort of disclosure happening today. So, what changed within that time period? Listen up.
Let's go forward up to, let's say, 2008. Now you suddenly have, as Leslie proclaimed so well in her December 2017 article in the New York Times, Senators Reid, Senators Reid, Inouye, and Stevens decided that there should be a new study started from scratch with new people involved to investigate the area. So I would like to remind you that those three senators are all part of the Gang of Eight, which means they probably had some background as to why this was a good idea. And so they told the Defense Intelligence Agency to start a program. Now this was the OSAP program, which you're probably all familiar with, Advanced Aerospace Weapons Systems Application Program, which eventually morphed into ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And the requirements of the DIA were two. One, the most obvious one, of course, is Where are these things coming from? What's their intent? What do we have to deal with here? It turns out that that was not a particular interest. It was really item number 2. And that is, since we know other countries are researching this, getting access to materials and so on, what happens if they develop advanced technologies in our adversarial competitors that leap ahead of us?
2008, we just figured out things are flying around in our skies. What's the first thing they worry about? Money and power, okay? Goes back to that greed thing that I talked about earlier. They're concerned, oh man, we cannot let Russia or China get that technology because America needs to be first. And here we are, right? Now we have people like Lou Elizondo, we have people like David Fravor sitting in front of Congress, and all of them saying the same thing. Yep, it's a security threat. It's a national security threat. Well, it's not the fact that these UAPs, UFOs are the national security threat. We're not concerned about them. They've been here. They're not dangerous. But if that technology lands in the hands of an adversary, now we got another problem on our hands.
That's what they were most worried about. So we had to take on that as our challenge to figure out, what could it be? Now, the list of things they wanted us to investigate, and I want you to think about the fact that they must have known something to make a list like this. They were interested in 12 potential threat areas with regard to UAP: lift, propulsion, control, power generation, space-time translation, materials, configuration structure, signature reduction, human effects, human interface, armament, and peripheral support issues.
Yeah, that's a quite interesting list of things. Random, if you ask me, right? Energy, propulsion, the effects of what happens when humans get too close to it. Oh, that sounds a lot like we might have something. What do we need to be concerned about?
It's a pretty intelligent list. So chances are you've got some knowledge that's driving this list. So our ingoing assumption was, okay, maybe what we had heard way back in 2004 was true, and that is countries do have access to crash retrieval materials.
Yeah, so in 2004, apparently we heard that there was crash retrieval vehicles of non-human origin, and we're just like, yeah, dude, like, cool. And then years later, we're like, oh shit, maybe that's actually a thing. Like, maybe that's real. We should find out what kind of technology we got going on out there. So they devise a schemy little plan, and they write up a bunch of things. Listen to what's on this list.
Adiatronic fusion propulsion, superconductors and gravity research, positron aerospace propulsion, warp drive dark energy extra dimensions, advanced nuclear propulsion, brain-machine interfaces, IEC fusion as a compact energy source, quantum vacuum energy extraction, space-time metric engineering, traversable wormhole stargates, advanced aerospace materials, metallic glasses for aerospace use, MEMS-based biosensors, and on and on and on.
And so essentially they created this little list that they sent out to a bunch of companies, 38 companies, and they just kind of wanted to figure out who had what and where it was. And that was very devious because I'm sure they, hypothetically speaking, had a project and they just wanted to know what was where so they could get a grasp on what it is they were dealing with. And then he got the information back, and then they went ahead and even published some of the paperwork.
That we approach had any ideas that anything to do with trying to figure out anything about ET technologies. And so we told them, you could even publish them in the open literature, and many of them did. So anyway, that's where we come to. So I think now's the time that we have all these reasons to take this really seriously, and to expect that something is going to come out into the public.
So after that, he essentially goes into talking a little bit about the Schumer bill and how important it is for that Schumer bill to pass in order for us to have a large portion of the disclosure come forth. Now, please keep in mind that this video is going out in 2025. The Seoul conference that he was speaking in the last video that we seen was 2024, and this entire thing that he was talking about took place way back in 2004 forward. And if you still don't believe in my theory of the fact that the government is ahead of us and they have a curriculum, there's nothing that's going to wake you up to that. I do think, after listening to this, that some of that technology is going to be brought forward. That list of technology that he shattered off at the end with some gravitational humbug that he was speaking, is probably something that will be coming forth with the information that is coming out. As he said in the last little bit, we'll see some of it come to the public. But will we see all of it come to the public and come to light with the UFO phenomenon? Probably not. Again, everybody in the beginning of this video stated that it's probably going to be too dangerous to have it all brought to the light. At least we can see some of it. I hope this answers your question. Thank you so much for submitting it and giving me this beautiful video idea. If you guys like it, you know exactly what to do. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.